All right. Let's do this to start. Would the three of you just take a second and fill us in on who you are and a little bit about your organization?
Great, thanks, Wayne. It's good to see everybody. Good afternoon. No falling asleep, please. I know you just got done with lunch, but you'll be fine. This is going to go quick. My name is Dennis Burns, president of Pulse Design Group. Based here in Kansas City, Pulse Design Group, we do architecture. We focus 100% of our efforts in the healthcare space. But I will tell you that it seems as if the last couple of years, we really stopped referring to ourselves as just an architecture firm. And that has a lot to do with mindset shift. And we have a very bold and aspirational mission and vision statement, which in a nutshell is set us up to do our best as architects to transform healthcare. Okay, we are a 48-person firm. Phones on silent, please. Raise your hand, just phones that. We're going to get your name on the agenda for next year. So how is an architecture firm of 48 people going to transform healthcare? You all experience healthcare, you know what it's about, it's crazy. And we'll get more into this, but our goal and our hope is to change the way healthcare is experienced, its accessibility, and the cost as an architecture firm. I know it's lofty. We're going to talk more about that. Wayne, thank you so much for asking us to be part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike?
Yeah, my name is Mike Hughes. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Professional Engineering Consultants, headquartered in Wichita. Our company's mission is we are a civil and architectural engineering company that provides services in the vertical and horizontal construction space. And our mission is to energize communities. So everything that we do is centered around the benefit and prosperity of communities, meaning more than just the municipal government, but all the things that are going on in that community, whether it be healthcare, commercial, education, industrial and manufacturing, all the different areas that utilize mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, and civil engineering. If there are projects that they're doing that have a positive impact on the community, we want to be involved.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
All right, my name is Rich Smith, and I do not have a title because I retired about 3 months ago, but I spent 30 years at Henderson Engineers, and I'm going to answer the question a little bit different because I don't really want it to be about Henderson so much. I want it to be about what happened at Henderson to potentially help you with your firms as being leaders. So I think the very most important thing when it comes to a growing and successful and growth mindset organization is corporate culture. And you certainly need to have strategy, you need to have QC processes, great technical people, you need to be able to do your job. But the most important thing from my perspective is a great corporate culture. You want engaged employees coming in every day, wanting to change the world or change the firm. At Henderson, this was probably in the early 2000s, we hired PSNJ, and I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're not quite as good as Pioneer IQ, but we hired them in early 2000. One of the things they told us was firms get to a size of 250, 300, and they begin to stagnate. And at the time, you become clueless on the Topeka, went to KU, whatever, so you have to show me this. But if you go back and look at the data of our company, for about 7 years, we hovered right around 350 to 400 employees, and we just couldn't pierce through kind of that next step. And what really changed for us, I think, was giving our employees a reason to come into work every day, beyond just a paycheck. And it was an epiphany moment for me in my leadership, because I began early in my career, it was more about the day-to-day, management. But I realized that the true value of our organization was positively impacting people's lives. And I'm not talking about just in the engineering space, but as parents, as spouses, as community members. And so that's where I really thought Henderson took off. And then from after we came out with our vision and purpose, and our purpose was to create an environment where people can reach their full potential. And I'm like, I want to work at a company where that's their purpose, to come in and get better at what they do every day. And so we kind of broke through that plateau of 400 people and ultimately got to a little bit over 1,000
Love that, love that. Okay, so many of you in the room know me, so it's possible that I might cry, laugh, or faint. I've done all three of those in front of a group audience like this, but listening to the intro and some of their stories brings back a lot of memories and experiences that we've been through together. So it's really fun for us to be able to do this, and hopefully you can pick something up and do that. So who am I? What do I do? Why am I standing here? So again, my name is Dwayne Abels. I've got a company called Pioneer IQ. We've been in business for 25 years. We've worked with somewhere around 700 design and construction companies in the U.S. That's the only group of people that we work with. And most of what we do is exactly what Rich just talked about. All we do is specifically scale and grow design and construction companies. But we spend probably 70% of our time right now working with men and women who are making the transition from managing projects to leading teams, leading people, organizations, or big divisions. That's what we spend the majority of our time on. And that's really where these four mindsets have been discovered. Dan Bitt, my business partner, in the back. These four mindsets were really authored by him, and it's something that we've got a podcast series going on right now. We've written a bunch of articles on, and we do speaking on these four mindsets specifically in 24. So here's how I hope this can work. I'll tee up the mindset for you, and then I'm going to toss the ball over to one of these three leaders. And something is really important. You're going to notice really quickly, if you haven't already, that these guys are going to be pretty vulnerable. And I've asked them to specifically talk about a few things that you could call war wounds that they picked up along the way that they're willing to share with you. But I'm asking them to be a little vulnerable, so I'm asking you to do something as well. If there's something that's bugging you about the topic, or there's something that you struggle with, or maybe you've seen somebody else struggle with, throw it out to us. Like, we're here to talk and help through challenges or issues or hurdles, something that you may be dealing with, or a friend of yours may be dealing with, however you want to find a position. All right, so we're going to switch to these four mindset shifts. Okay, so the first one is really simple. And it's the whole concept of leading teams. And Dan was actually on the San Francisco Airport project, like 4 months ago, maybe, and working with that project team, 5-year project. And the woman running that project, she looked over at us and she said, hey, the most important thing to us over the last 20 years of my career has been synchronizing processes with subcontractors to deliver a project. Okay, kind of expect that. And she looks at me and she says, not anymore. The most important thing to us as a team is synchronizing our culture so that when men and women come out on the job site every single day, they understand the magnitude of impact that they individually have on our job site, the people here, and the project itself. And I think that does a good job of kind of summarizing this first mindset shift. And the mindset shift is leading teams, like we're talking specifically about leading teams, developing culture on your design build teams, but leading them with significance versus success. And so a really simple way of thinking about that is, if you think about the traditional way of motivating teams, especially when it comes to trade contractors or different folks on a team, what's it get down to? It gets down to money and timeline, right? And if you do a good job, you hit your budget and you hit your timeline, which is still incredibly important. I think everybody agree with that here. But the bigger question gets down to is, how do we help these men and women who are showing up every day and maybe sacrificing baseball games or recitals or whatever else that their kids may be doing? How do we help them understand that what they're doing on this job site or that 8 or 10 hour day is significant and that they're individually significant? So that's the mindset, shifting from success and money, if you will, to impact and purpose. So I'm going to specifically turn this one over to Dennis. And when I think about Dennis's leadership at Pulse Design Group, side note, isn't it fun that you have a contractor running an architecture firm? I mean, there's a little bit of fun in that. Come on, Joe, right?
It depends on who you ask.
Okay, that's right. But one of the things that I thought was really important for you to share with the group here is that Pulse, like most firms, has done some really cool projects, right? But I've seen your transformation from motivating people around projects, right? And you mentioned in your intro, to understanding the significance that these projects have. And as we were helping Pulse develop that purpose and vision and that brand story, if you will, they started sharing this with some of their clients. And so I asked Dennis to share what that movement really is about, and some of the transformation that he's seen with his teams and how to motivate people to want to work with him on projects going forward.
That's great. Thank you, Wayne. It's some of what I'm about to say. For those of you that may not be with a firm that puts purpose first, this is going to sound pie in the sky and potentially fake. And I want to be honest with you. If you are one of those, I was too, until not too long ago. So, in thinking about this conversation today, I thought about this phrase, and I'm sure you've heard of it. And it goes like this: if you truly love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. We've all heard that. I roll city, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what is this over here? Well, I was that person as well, to a certain extent. Because I'm like, wait, I gotta do projects, you gotta run a company, you gotta grow your people, you gotta keep moving forward. But what we just went through at Pulse Design Group, I can honestly say that is true. And when we landed on our purpose and we were able to share what we're trying to do and where we're going with our people, the difference in the culture, the difference in our recruiting, the difference in our retention, it's totally different. So at Pulse Design Group, our purpose is that we exist to unify and serve alongside our partners in healing to create flourishing communities by expertly crafting places for wellness. That's it. Nothing about architecture, nothing about healthcare, engineering, trauma, surgeries, nothing. Our total existence is to truly make a difference. And what happened when we rolled this out and we shared with our team, who were heavily involved in learning about what we're trying to do and say, we then brought in our clients and we shared with them what it is we're trying to do. Basically asking for their blessing of like, this is our new mindset, this is what we're trying to do. Does it resonate? So we brought in 2 CEOs different times and sat in front of our whole firm and had discussion like this. And man, the conversation with the CEO of a major healthcare system, listening to what we're trying to do and how we're going about it, not only did it just tremendously align with their organization, it helped us even build upon it further. So now we're not talking about projects anymore with the CEOs. We're not asking for work, what's the next project, what's 25 look like? Now it's more about transforming healthcare. Now it's about making a difference. And the conversations are totally different. And I'm assuming that as you guys went through your process, some of this led you down that path of just having different conversations. It's not all about work anymore. And I know that's a long way around to get what I'm trying to say, but when you have a purpose and you believe in it, it just feels easier. And it feels like the difference you're making truly, truly matters.
So I think probably everybody in the room works in a firm that's really struggling with recruiting people, number one, or looking at gaining more work and building bigger partnerships. So how would you say that this helped you recruit new folks into Pulse Design Group as employees?
We did that this morning. We had a very talented individual come by the firm this morning, looking for an opportunity, tenured in the field, healthcare expert. And when we can sit down and have a conversation, of course, where do you want to go? What are your aspirations? Should this move forward? What kind of role do you see yourself in? But beyond all that, it's like we stopped talking about the business and we started talking about why we're doing what we're doing. And we talk about our guiding principles. And I go, guys, this might sound cliche, but first of all, how many of you out here at your firms have guiding principles? Mm-hmm. How many of you can recite them today? I know. A couple of them. I get it, because we have work to do, we have pressure, we have deadlines, I understand. But when we're talking to potential employees about coming on board, it's not so much about, hey, can we meet your number and what's the timing of your start date? They walk away and say, man, I thought we were just going to talk about an open position you have. I didn't know the the movement that you guys are trying to put together. So I am in, and I want to be on board with what you're trying to do. And what happens also is when that potential employee, we encourage them to talk to other employees that have been on board for a while. Before you join, hey, go talk to Alan. Reach out and talk to Matt Meyer. We can tell you all you want. Listen to the folks in the room, and it resonates because we're all on the same page. So it's made a huge difference in the story.
Have you found a similar response or a different response when you're looking at trying to build a team to go after a big project or deliver a project?
We recreated the way we do it. We have now started to involve the technical experts way more upfront on the pursuit, as opposed to pulling resumes, understanding the task at hand, assigning the right teams, packaging up the RFP, sending it in, then get shortlisted, and then we go talk to those that we submitted. Oh, by the way, we got shortlisted, we interview in 2 weeks. What's the project? How did I get chosen? What am I supposed to do? No. They are involved way more up front. And we sit around and we talk about this pursuit, what does this project mean to that community? What's the difference it's going to make? So now there's more of an emotional attachment to how we're going to win. And so it's made a difference in pretty much everything we do. But I will tell you, just like guiding principles, I can't recite them, no big deal. Because what happens over time, if you don't talk about it, they just go away. So as leaders, we have to be very committed to continually talk about and remind what we're trying to do. And it's not easy. It's a lot of stress in doing what we do, but man, if you get to that core and that drive, it just, again, it's not easy, but it seems easier. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so again, this whole mindset shift is truly about how do we motivate teams. And right now we're finding that primes and people who are trying to influence and build teams are having a hard time getting people to participate. And so the question gets down to, if we can't pay those teams more money, right, because there's a lock on that, how do we motivate them to want to be a part of what we're doing in our teams? And I appreciate that example. Real quick, is there any questions or any feedback on this particular mindset or topic that you might have for these guys? Any questions on it? Okay, cool. I'll move to the next one. All right, so the next mindset is all about leading with a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Now, that sounds really simple. And here's where this plays out the most. We are out on job sites all the time, and we constantly hear this. I'll ask a question. Well, why didn't you guys implement that? That sounds like a great idea. Response, well, we proposed that, but the general or the owner or my manager just didn't see the value in that. Can anybody relate to that thought process? Right? It's this fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And really what we want to get down to is, how do we lead teams, how do we lead people, and how do we provide resources with a mindset that helps us to look at their potential, or the potential of the situation, or the potential problem with what could be versus what we've always done, right? Trying to get past that. I'm going to toss this one over to Rich, and specifically why I thought Rich would be valuable to you all on this particular topic is because I watched Rich break the mold in our industry as he was scaling Henderson from 300 to what is over 1,000 employees. And I would say recruiting is probably one of the top conversations that we have. The next in line conversation with companies as they try to grow is how do we retain our top talent. But I wanted Rich to just share with you the commitment that he made with every single new employee as they were coming on board to Henderson as he was growing.
Okay, thank you. I did want to make one comment about just recruiting and attracting talent. And I think COVID has made this situation, I'm not going to say worse, it just amplified it a little bit. But I think you have employees that want to come in and get a paycheck and do a good job, and they want to be part of that. Is okay. But I think more and more you're finding people that have a higher calling and they want to make a difference. They want to be a part of something bigger. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. And that movement can attract people and that can drive talent to your organization. So as far as having, trying to impact individuals, I've said this comment at least 50 times, and that is, I'm not sure I can change my organization one person at a time. We're going to try to do it. We have all of our employees go through strength finders, and one of my strengths happens to be called a leader. and a relator is somebody that wants to have a close personal relationship with the people around them. So I'm naturally wired to be curious about others. And I think where that benefited Henderson was that I wanted to spend time with people. So it was breakfast, it was lunch, it was happy hours, it was dinners. I wanted to know what made people tick and how we could create an environment at Henderson where they could really flourish in their careers. So again, going beyond getting the project done to how do we inspire people to be better versions of themselves, and through that, it impacts the organization positively.
Thanks, Rich. I hear this all the time. You know, the old mindset, you know, really gets down to, you know, being a fixed mindset is if we have a position and we have a really good title and we're going to give you a great paycheck, right? Duh, we kind of have to have all those things, right? But what I watched Rich do was shift that mindset to just following what his heart was all about, which was connecting people. And the one thing that I remember is you guys were open in Vegas or Los Angeles, I can't remember, one of those markets. And I was interviewing a few of the managers there, and they're like, yeah, Rich just literally sat down and told me the impact that I might have on the vision of the company. And I was like, oh, I don't know, I know this strategy. But you could see the way that this person connected with it was like, I'm a part of something now. And if you don't hear anything more than this last statement, this statement I'm about to make, please take this one home with you. The number one thing that we're finding in 2024 that people want, even more than work-life balance and all the employee surveys that we do, is a sense of belonging, right? And your ability as a leader on a team, either you're running the team or you're just on the team, helping people to see that they belong on your team and helping them understand their contribution is absolutely significant in how to connect them emotionally to what you're doing every day. Is there anything?
I want to add to that. So 2 quick anecdotes. First, I was meeting with an employee in our Dallas office, and I just asked some basic questions about who they were and how they were doing. This employee got emotional with me because she'd never had anybody in leadership from a previous employer ask about her. And it's so simple, but yet so critical and important to making people feel valued. And then the other story, I was at Rock and Brews at Prairie Fire, having a beer, interviewing somebody. And this person, they teed it up so good. I'm interviewing for a mid-level, important position for a company. They asked me, so what's the direction of your company and what do you guys stand for? I had a legal-sized graphic. I had it in my office, I had it in my home on the dresser, and I had it folded up in my car about our vision and purpose, and it was a roadmap for the next 5 years of our company. So this person asked me the question, I said, hold on a second, let me run to my car. So I go to my car and pull out this graphic and just lay it out to them, you know, what it meant to be a part of Henderson. And it changes the conversation. It's not about the job and the benefits and all of that, it's how I can make an impact in the field.
Yeah, we found the same in working with your team and of course our leadership at Pulse Design, that it didn't go on the recruiting side of things, having a 10-year plan, which changes all the time, but people also not only want to be part of something that is impactful where you can make a difference, and I'll be honest, the Pulse Design Group, because we are 100% healthcare, like that's all we do all across the country, so we have an inherent passion about what we do because of the people that utilize the facilities we design and eventually get built. I mean, it's emotional, right? Hospitals and healthcare sometimes has emotion to it. So we do have that on our side. But in addition to having a purpose by showing a 10-year plan, that by year in the increments, how we're going to do that. Those two things combined, it's like, wow, okay, so not only are you passionate about what you do and you have a mission, but you also have a plan to get there. Two very important things, and they sound easy to do, but if you really drill down, I mean, it takes, again, vulnerability. You used it earlier. I mean, you gotta look in there and really feel like, what am I doing here? And we've had some that just maybe didn't buy in, and you can kind of tell. Again, there's nothing wrong. You come in, you do a good job, you get a paycheck, and you go. You gotta have it. So, no, it's been a lot of fun, and it's interesting.
So on this particular mindset, it's really easy to talk about strategies or resources, in terms of a growth mindset, deploying them differently for your team or on the job site. But I really wanted to spend some time thinking and share with you outside the box thoughts on growth mindset from leading people perspective. So I'm throwing it back out to you all. Anybody have any feedback, questions, thoughts on that? Mary?
A question for Rich, and that is, you mentioned corporate culture, and how did that shift from 300 to 1,000, or how did you protect that? Because that's a big swing there.
Corporate culture, it's hard to even define what corporate culture is.
I was going to ask you what your
right?
definition of that is.
To me, it's tied to engagement, and, life is an education if you pay attention, right? And, Southwest Airlines is a great example of a company that had great culture, but somewhere along the way they lost it. And so when I'm riding on an airplane, sometimes the Southwest employees don't want to be there like they used to be. So when you go from 10 employees to 1,000, how do you protect? And, I think there's a saying that it starts at the top. I wasn't the leader for 30 years, but people take their cues from the leaders that are around them, and not necessarily the president and CEO. It's all leaders within that firm. We were a little bit lucky at Henderson in that for about 3 decades we were a team concept, and so we had. When I started at Henderson, we had 2 teams. When I retired at Henderson, we had 35. So you can see the growth that happened. But you had the ability for that culture to thrive company-wide, but also within the confines of individual teams. And so we looked at Henderson not necessarily as 1,000 employees, but I'm on a team of 40 people. So I kind of have a home room, and that helps protect our culture as we grew for almost 20 years.
Anybody else on that topic? Okay, that's actually a great transition to the next mindset. So when you think about this third mindset, it's actually, I would say, I hate to use the word pandemic, this is like a thing that's been a problem in the industry for a really long time. And it goes back to what Mary just asked, is as you begin to grow, and as you start to win work and develop partnerships that are outside of your home office, how do you, what's the right model to expand with? And so this mindset is shifting from a centralized mindset to a decentralized mindset. And the reason why that's so important is literally what Mary and Rich just talked about. We see this all the time. You go and you get to know the leaders and the project managers and the culture of a job site or a job in the backyard of a company that's headquartered in Kansas City or wherever they are. And then you go to Denver or LA or Austin or Dallas, and then you walk into the office and like, are y'all the same company? Right? And there's this whole major I'm getting a lot of head nods here, folks. There's a whole big disconnect between what you feel in one office or what you're seeing or experiencing on one job site that might be in one community, and then you go back to the home office or a job site in Kansas City or wherever, they're completely different. Does that make sense? And so I wanted to bring in Mike. Mike is, this is a really interesting story, and it is a little vulnerable, to be honest with you, because what I think Mike's about to share with you is they actually significantly grew from 60 to a couple hundred really quick, and then they hit a massive plateau, and then they shifted to a decentralized model. So Mike, fill us in on that.
Yeah, I think probably the best way to describe this to you is just to kind of tell you the story of our company. Over the last 10 years, 15 years, our company has 9 offices, and it's been that way for quite some time. We were, prior to about 2014, we were structured as each office with its own profit center. So each office went out and done work, and they executed the work out of that office, and they, however they did on those projects, their wins, their profit and loss was all measured right there at the local office. And that worked pretty well for us for a while. But what we found is that we would have one office that had a surplus of work and another office that had a deficit, and they didn't want to share, right? Because it affects the bottom line. So we restructured in about 2014 to what our company called a horizontal structure. Basically, what that meant for us was that we moved from an office-based profit center business model to a discipline-based profit center business model. So as a civil and architectural engineering firm, we had disciplines of engineering, and we routed all of our profit and loss up through our disciplines. That improved our incentive, or at least it removed a roadblock to sharing work between offices. But we lost a couple of things. One of the things that we lost was a single point of responsibility in our branch locations for overall business growth. So we would have somebody in healthcare, for example, some healthcare work, and they would execute that work. Somebody else would be doing municipal streets, for example, and they go sell that work and they'd execute it. But nobody was looking out for the overall office. Like, how do we grow our entire company and represent our brand as a full-service engineering firm in those branch locations? And so that was the problem that was created. The solution that we are on the pathway of implementing is one involves a restructuring. So we have tried to implement a single point of responsibility for overall business growth in our branch locations while still retaining the removal of roadblocks to sharing work and even trying to incentivize shared work across offices. But the bigger part of that is, in addition to that restructuring, are the things that both Dennis and Rich have talked about, is connecting our staff to the overall impact of the work that they do on a daily basis has in society. And when you think about the impact of engineering and architecture, anything really in the vertical and horizontal construction space, society doesn't run at all without the work that we all do, right? It just doesn't. Everything that is needed for prosperity, for economic development, for quality of life, for health and safety, all of those things are significantly impacted by the AEC community. We are who is building the ways that we work and live, right, and entertain ourselves. So connecting people to that is hugely important. The other thing that we're doing is our company's mission is our purpose, I'll just tell you our purpose. So we are a family of professionals that exist to energize the community to shape the future of humanity. That's what our purpose is. And so you'll see some common themes here. Our purpose is almost identical to Dennis's company's purpose, except that they are specialized in healthcare, right? They're very, very similar. So getting people connected to that is really important. And the reason that that's important is that if you're going to decentralize your decision making, the people that you provide with the responsibility and authority to execute have to be aligned with what Rich was talking about. They have to be part of the same culture. They have to be going in the same direction as our staff. So that story about our company's history, we were very much centralized with decision making, was mostly in our corporate headquarters in Wichita. We are working toward pushing that out. We really want to recreate the brand recognition, impact to communities, the excellent customer service that we're able to provide out of our corporate headquarters. We want to recreate that in our branch locations. In order to do that, we have to give folks in those branch locations the same level of responsibility and authority so that they can execute in the same ways that we would if they were original.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm off script, beware. I got to tell you, so interesting thing about all three of these situations is that every one of these leaders has, as they were talking through these topics and conversation with you, they've all gone through significant leadership transitions. Like all three, I was just thinking that a while ago. All three leaders have gone through a transition where either the founder or the second CEO in the company ever then transitioned over to one of these three guys. And interestingly enough, I think there's a common trait there where you had that dynamic in the middle of all this other stuff going on as well. Mike calls me, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and he says, hey man, we got a problem over here. I hope you don't mind me telling the story. I'm like, oh God, what Dan do now? Joe. But he goes, hey man, we've opened up Fort Collins, we've got Tulsa up and running, we have all these technical experts all over really the 4 or 5 state area, opened up Kansas City, doing well on project. He goes, man, we kind of hit the ceiling. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He goes, we basically have 17 people that run the company. 17 people run divisions or large groups. I'm like, that's cool. He goes, no, it's not. He's like, we're about half short. And so literally over the course of the last 2 years, Mike and Tracy and Joe and their HR team and their marketing team have literally transitioned from, I think, 17 leaders to about 42, 45 leaders. And when I say leaders, I mean people who are actually in charge of teams or divisions or groups really outside of Wichita for the most part. How has that affected, first of all, it's scary, but how has that affected your culture and your organization?
Well, I think I should address the scary factor first. Let me do that. Because it is scary. You know, when you talk about decentralizing decision-making and responsibility, you know, you look at that and you think, man, that could go off the rails really fast. You know, that sounds a little risky to me. And it is. You know, the analogy is I've got 5 kids. I've taught them all how to drive a car. One kid, he gets in the car and says, okay, let's take off and go. He puts the key in the ignition, he adjusts his seat, he puts his foot on the brake, he's checking his mirrors, he's adjusting his mirrors, turns the key, waits till the car fires up, let's go to the ignition, make sure it doesn't really start, you know, and he's like, okay, where are we going? Next kid, give him the keys, put him in the driver's seat, say, okay, let's go. He turns and looks at me and says, what do I do? Well, you know, you kind of know your people, and you have to love them enough to be honest with them about what they're good at. And so it's really important that you put people in the right position. You're honest with them about what their strengths are, and you put them in a position where they can excel with those strengths. You don't want to take a kid that looked at you and said, well, what do I do? And give him the keys to your brand new car on Friday night. Right? You want to give it to the person who's more competent. So assessing competency is a big deal when you talk about decentralizing decision making, and it can be a little scary. We have people in our organization that take to it like a duck to water. You know, they're like, okay, and I got some, you know, we can spread this out, we can accomplish so much more together, and off they go. They're doing a great job. We have people that take that same mindset and they forget to look around, and they're not giving each other, you know, they're not communicating enough to know, okay, am I giving this person the right amount of responsibility at this point in time? And so you run some risk with that. And you know, our business is full of risks, and we have to decide what risks are acceptable. And at what rate do we want our people to grow? Because the more we can put on them, the more responsibility we can give them, with some bumpers, make sure they don't go off the rails, the faster they're going to grow. So it is scary. I will acknowledge that. And I think, you know, we also have people in our organization that are uncomfortable with that risk. And it's taking a lot more coaching to get them accustomed to. And you don't have to control every decision. You don't have to make sure that everything is perfect. You don't personally have to make sure everything is perfect. There are things that you can and should delegate. And we find that when we do that well, in the areas of our company where we're doing that well, people are growing at a faster rate. And we're getting more production. You know, you can always hear about this 80-20. Everybody's always heard 80-20, right? 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients, or 80% of the work comes from 20% of your people. You know, apply it any way you like. And I think it's a little overused personally. And I think every organization is different. But the basic principle is pretty accurate, right? I mean, you get the most out of your high performers. So it's really important that we shift that, whatever it is, with 80/20 or 70/30, and we shift that, and as much as we can out of everybody, and be much more successful if we do that.
Again, I'm off script, but I want to throw something out to all three, because two of you specifically I know have dealt with this. But as I've watched both of your two firms specifically start to decentralize, I've realized that there's actually a pretty big disconnect in our industry, and I'm saying this respectfully, and I'm saying it as politely as I can. There's actually a really big disconnect between people who are delivering projects and people who are paid as quote-unquote overhead in your corporate support divisions in your headquarters. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Like we have, like both of your firms specifically, yours as well, but in your two firms specifically, I watched you go through this transition where people that were out delivering projects had to realize how much help and resources they had available in their HR department, in their marketing department, in their business development department, in their accounting department. Remember that? Right? That's a real thing. Has anybody else experienced that in your firm? Or maybe your friend has in their firm, right? But it's a real thing. And as simple as it sounds, watching you all educate and inspire your team about the internal resources available, all of a sudden what we realized was that people who were being promoted to lead teams or lead divisions or lead offices, they were probably more scared than the executives were. And we really didn't even notice that until they started coming to boot camps, and Mike Wiley from in your group literally stood up and he said, I've been in the industry for 32 years, been around a minute, right? And he goes, I got a call from Mike and Joe to come do this position. And he said, my biggest fear is letting them down. And I was like, what? And he goes, this position is what I've wanted in my career for 30 years. I chose to do this, and I'm scared to death I'm going to screw it up. And helping these people that you're appointing, or maybe it's you, that's getting asked to or promoted to lead a team, an organization, or division, or another office, that's a factor that's really there. Anything that you guys would add to the corporate support comment?
Well, just that Mike's doing a great job. We tell him all the time, so if you get a chance to talk to him.
Question? Yes.
So I have something to add to that. When you take a company, or maybe it already is at a global or international level, you're talking 10,000 employees or more, then that becomes even harder. Even harder. And the messages at that global leadership level don't seem to resonate at the individual office level. That is so true.
Did everybody hear that? Head nods, no? That's a really important point. Can I have you look at them and say that out loud? Because people need to hear what you just said, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So when you take your company to a global or international level, meaning maybe 10,000 employees or more, the disconnect between executive leadership at that global level down to individual leadership in each office becomes very disconnected, and even the support resources within HR and accounting and marketing and other departments become even more disconnected as well. And it really becomes important to over-communicate, and the messages can sometimes get skewed very easily from the global level down to the individual office level. I don't have the solution for how to overcome that yet.
Has anybody heard the phrase lowest level of competency? That decisions or tasks should be performed or made at the lowest level of competency. That's a principle that, if we can get and as companies grow, we have to teach the leaders of those teams, local branch offices or whatever it might be, we have to teach them to be the kind of leader that the executives are trying to be, to get the same message to the ground level. But this concept of lowest level competency, if we took all of the decisions that are made in an organization, all the tasks that are done in an organization, and we performed them at the lowest level of competency, our efficiency would go through the roof. Because too many times we have the CEO mopping the floor after work every day, right? And it's not that he's above that, he's not, but is that the best use of his time, right? And so if we can, I'm not a very good typist, right? And I'll write something out and it'll take me forever to get it edited. So if there's somebody else that is faster at editing, let them do it. So if we can identify what that lowest level of competency is, and the key word is competency. Obviously, we don't want people doing things that they're not competent to do. But if we identify what the lowest level of competency is, we have those folks doing those things, we'll be much, much more efficient.
I want to talk about that in a second, but I want to go back to your concern. I would dread leading an organization of 10,000 people and trying to control that culture. But I think the task there is there's leaders in each one of these silos around the globe, making sure that they're as unified as much as possible, believing in the same message and communicating that to those verticals. But that would be a big challenge. But I can't even imagine how many reviews I've sat in during my career. One of the things that comes up a lot with technical people is as they progress in their career, they tend to not want to delegate. And I don't know if it's because it's a comfort zone for them or they're worried it might be done differently than what they would expect. But delegation can be so empowering to an organization. It's exactly what you're talking about. And a lot of times I'm like, I'll do that because I don't want to make somebody else do something that I want to do. But the reality is, it's empowering to them, they're helping, and it allows you to carve out time to do things to really push the organization forward. And the last thing I want to say, an inflection point in our company happened when we began to invest in some of the admin areas. Typically how that works in smaller ABC firms, if you have a guy or a girl that's really good at accounting, so they're the PIC of accounting. Or you have somebody who's a people person, so let's put Joe in charge of HR. That works for a while, but at some point in time, the impact you can have on your organization by hiring a professional that knows HR or knows marketing or knows accounting or knows IT, it can have a big boost to your company. You can get to that point to be able to do that and invest in yourself.
We had a hard time with that. Still kind of do. When I joined Postal Design Group 4.5 years ago, just looking around for the first 6 or 8 months, it became apparent that that's kind of what was happening. It's fine, right? It's a small firm, and you grow, and yeah, you give opportunity, but over time, visiting with the principals, I started to tell them from time to time, I think it's important that you get comfortable, just mentally, start becoming more comfortable about overhead. Like, what? Add more overhead? What are you talking about? Well, the problem is that you can't grow, or you can't get anything done because you're going to give it to those that are good at it, but expect them to do the regular job. So, getting comfortable with more overhead was not a popular phrase, but we've done it, and it works, and we do have the right people in the right spot. Still a lot of work to do, but these conversations are very important, and for some, it takes a long time to get there, to understand what that truly means to the firm.
It's interesting because I think we're having a few mindset shifts colliding here, right? So the fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and then also the decentralization versus decentralization. And as I'm listening to what you're saying, I really believe that fear probably plays the biggest role in why we don't make those transitions. Would y'all agree with that?
Yeah.
Can anybody else relate to that? I mean, I think it's a real thing. Now, if anybody's hanging out later, I think we're going to an after party at Trozamore across the street, or maybe have a cocktail or two later. We have a thing called Captain Safe Bro. It's an award we give to people who like to jump down and do everybody else's job for them, so we can talk about that for fun over beer later. But I appreciate your feedback on that. So the last mindset that I want to talk about, you've actually been addressing a little bit, but I'm just going to share with you just for a second what we've been seeing at Pioneer Q, and I mean really like the last 12 months. So this isn't like, hey, I've been doing this thing for like 15 years. I'm telling you, this is 12 months fresh. All right, so it may not come out right. But this last mindset is the transition from leading people with authority to leading people with love and care. You've already heard a few examples of this, and so for some of you in the room, you just rolled your eyes or you cringed. But we actually spend more time on job sites on this topic with big badass people that are wearing boots and swinging hammers and working big equipment than I do in the office. So if you have a hard time disconnecting from an office environment to a job site environment, just to be patient with me for a second, because I want to help you understand something. We've been going on these job sites a lot the last 12 months. And what we've begun to realize is that people in 2024, I don't care how old you are, they're different. When we walk out on job sites, what we're realizing is that people are coming to work every day with a backpack full of burdens. And I think we've had people on job sites with a backpack full of burdens for as long as we've been doing construction in the world. But for some reason, this generation of people, that backpack full of burdens, is actually preventing them from fully reaching their potential for themselves and their teams when they get on the job site. Y'all know what I'm talking about? So here's some specific examples that we've seen. We watched somebody come out on a job site, and the PM from the SFO project from Turner says, hey, go talk to him. So we say, hey man, are you okay? Doesn't seem like you're bringing your A game today, very respectfully. And two things come out to him, come out of the conversation. Number one is their credit card, because interest rates have gone up, their credit card debt and their monthly payments have escalated, and that man's walking around the job site all day, every day, thinking about one thing: how am I going to make my freaking credit card payment? People in the office may not have that problem. People on job sites are coming to work every day with that problem. Another thing that he brought up was that his daughter's a cutter, right? She's got some mental health issues. This one guy, right? So what's this have to do with construction? Here's what it has to do with. That guy's coming on job site 7:30 in the morning, okay? Now West Coast, they go to work a little bit later than the Midwest, we'll just give them that, 7:30, right? Come on job site. And he's already halfway tired because he's carrying on the burdens back. And what happens is they go throughout the day and they're plugging away trying to get the job done with somewhat of an unrealistic expectation. And I noticed around 1:30 or 2 o'clock, he's worn out. And it's not just from physical exertion, it's mental. And so instead of taking off his backpack of burdens, he takes off his tool belt. And so for the next 3, 4, 5 hours while he's on a job site, he's not functioning very well, which puts him at risk, puts everybody else at risk. You see what I'm saying? So we're looking at all these job sites, and I see the same thing in offices now, right? And what I'm trying to get to is that an authoritarian style of leadership does not freaking work in 2024. It doesn't work. If you're leading with an authoritarian style of leadership, every one of your people are waiting for someone else to recruit them. I'm telling you that's the case. I'm telling you, right? So what I want to talk a little about is, what does it mean to actually lead with love and care, right? And Kelly, you raised your hand. Did you have something? I don't know.
Just
5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. But I want to go back and just talk about that a little bit. So I'm just throwing it back to the panel, kind of throwing the floor open. When you think about your team, when you think about your people, when you think about your job sites, and when I say making the transition from leading from authority versus leading with love or care, like, what does that mean to you, and what maybe 1 or 2 things that you do in your organization or on your team as it pertains to that? What does that mean to you?
I can tell you for me, it means being completely and authentically honest with people. Well, somebody told me a long time ago that people remember how you made them feel much more than they remember what you told them. So in order to anytime you have a group of people, you do your best to inspire them, to motivate them, so that they catch the vision and want to go accomplish it themselves. happens, it's like a genie in a bottle, right? It's just fantastic when that happens. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes there's a bit of a churn, right? And when there's a churn, having the kind of trusted relationships with employees where we can have an authentic, honest conversation about what's going well and what's not going well, in a way that makes them feel valued and seen and heard, is really, really important.
Very important.
So I've never worked for an authoritarian organization because I wouldn't have done well. I don't know who does that anymore, and I know there's variations of it. It could be a rogue employee or a manager that's just leading that way. That sucks. But for Pulse, what I've seen, which works extremely well, is this woman right here. We have a champion in Mary Moore that the door is always open, and when people have a problem or a concern, we have an emergency fund. I mean, for example, for I can't pay my credit card, or my muffler blew off, or the vet bill is out of control. So we have a fund for that. But to have an individual, and again, we're small, we're 48 people, so it's a lot easier to do. But they know they can trust her. They know she's going to be caring and confidential with the information. So this is a bit of a unique deal. But again, back to the fact we are working on mental and behavioral health hospitals all over the country all the time. Again, it's kind of inherent that we talk about behavioral health and mental health in our offices more so than most people do. I'm also very proud to say that not only at our place, but I think across the country, we are finally talking more and more about mental and behavioral health. It's okay. So that's a whole different session. That's a couple of days, right? So yes, love is way better than heavy-handed. So thank you for that, Mary.
So real quick, I have a reputation for getting emotional around Henderson engineers. It's kind of a joke. Probably wagers were being made, so it's going to get emotional during the company meeting. But it's because I care. And I think as leaders, you need to ask yourself what is important to you and what kind of organization you want to have. I'm a firm believer body language is powerful. And I can look at somebody in an office environment within 30 seconds and pretty much tell whether they're bringing themselves, whether they're engaged, or whether they're checked out or not. So as a leader, pay attention, look around you as well. And the last thing I want to say, I love self-improvement books, and I've got a stack of them. In fact, all my old ones are at Henderson as part of the library. But there's a book by Joel Manby called Leading with Love. And it was a really powerful book for me about 10 years ago. I recommend that if anybody else is into self-improvement books.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the three of you being vulnerable and walking us through what you've experienced. I hope you pick something up. At the end of the day, we have a ton of technical expertise and leadership on all these design build teams. And what we're trying to do is help develop the leadership expertise of the people who are inspiring leading these teams on a daily basis. Thank you so much. It takes a lot of courage, but just know they need you. Lead on.